Hi everyone. I want to talk about the writing process in this video. And I want so many times I have students that say they just sit down and start hammering things out. Well, a lot of times writing teachers can figure that out. As you know, as you get more and more sophisticated with your writing, there's some more planning that needs to happen before you actually start hammering out your ideas. Think about it in a food cooking sense. If you are making peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you probably don't have a lot of planning to do for that, right? You probably have a jar of peanut butter in your cupboards. You probably have jelly or jam in your refrigerator. You probably have a loaf of bread. So it does not take long to throw that together and have lunch, right? But if you are eating something a little more sophisticated, you maybe even something new, you probably have to make sure that you have all the ingredients. You might need to go shopping for some of them. And then I usually print out my recipe that I'm doing, my brand new recipe. I tape it up onto a cupboard so I can refer to it really easily. So there's some planning that needs to go into something that's a little more sophisticated. And that's the same thing that's going to happen with your writing as you get further and further into this college level academic writing. You need to do some more planning. So we've got some different steps in the process of writing. Let me see if I can. Yeah, I was afraid of that. I lost myself, so I'll come back. So we have some steps, and this is something that when I learned about it as my bachelor's is from 1988, and I was in middle school uh, teacher or middle school education. And so one of the classes I took was language arts. And in it, I learned this amazing information about the writing process. And it was one of those things in life that, excuse me, I always feel funny doing that these days. It's one of those things that I said, and I said this about two or three times during my bachelor's degree process, was why didn't anybody tell me this? If somebody had told me this in middle school, it would have changed my life. And this particular thing absolutely was something that I had struggled with. I liked writing, but I was never someone who felt good about their writing. I wasn't confident about my writing. I wasn't sure if I knew that I liked my paper, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be an A. It could be an A or it could be an F. I just had no clue. And I was in an honors English class in high school my last 2 years, and I still did not know what was going to be an okay paper, what was going to be a failing paper. I just had no clue. I just was kind of felt like I was flying blind. And I felt that way for the first couple of years. When I got to college, I went to college. I had been told, the whole class of honors English students, 12th grade, had been told by our English teacher that if we were an A student in high school, we'd be a B student in college. And if we were a B student, we'd be a C student in college. And if we worked, we'd drop one more grade down. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I have failed out. I haven't even arrived at college yet, and I have failed out. And went to college, went into my freshman comp class, and aced it. And it was because of the way my teacher taught. It made sense. Everything started clicking for me. And it was like, yeah, I got this. I can do this writing thing. Now, I still didn't know why. I still didn't know how to approach the writing process. I know I liked my writing. I know I could be good at it. And I felt confident, but I still couldn't pin anything on how to do it the next time that I had to write something. Until about my junior year of college, when I took this class in how to teach writing, how to teach language arts, and part of that was the writing skills. And I learned about this writing process, and it just made so much sense to me. So basically, what the researcher, his name is Don Murray, what the researcher said was that we go through, and he wrote about 3 basic steps, which is how I kind of teach this. The pre-writing part, where you sit down and you figure out what you want to say and if you're splitting things up into paragraphs, what each paragraph is going to say, and then that will help you kind of develop the flow for the paper. And then you sit down and draft, or I also call it writing. So pre-writing, pre-writing, writing, and this in this picture we have drafting. But you just, in the drafting stage, you just sit down, hammer it out, use your pre-writing to show you what needs to come next. And then don't worry about organization, don't worry about word choice, don't worry about grammar, punctuation, spelling, any of those things. Remember, I'm learning this pre-internet, right? So you just hammer it out. You just get the thoughts from the brain onto the paper or onto the computer screen. Then you come back and you revise. And in my day, it was rewriting. So it was pre-writing, writing, and rewriting. And in the revising time, that is when you look at, do I need to change my word choice? Do I need to spell anything differently? Is Grammarly telling me I need to fix something? Do I have a subject verb that needs to be fixed? That is where you do the revising and the editing. And a lot of what I was just mentioning are editing things. They're minute details, kind of insignificant when you look at the overall message, but you want to have good skills because you want people to listen to your message. But then the revising is, this might be a really strong paragraph and I have it in the middle. Maybe I need to end with it because it's my strongest point. So revising would be maybe a different approach to how you prove your point, your overall point. So you take care of that revising and editing after you've actually gotten the information out onto the paper or onto the computer screen, and then you figure out how you want to punish it. Punish it. You publish it. So that is the writing process. And for decades, I taught this. And my problem is I'm kind of perfectionistic. Anytime I am a little bit late in getting things done, like, things for class or whatever, anytime I'm a little late getting things done, it's usually because I tend toward perfectionism, which kind of kills the process, right? A lot of times it kills creativity. A lot of times it kills really good things because I'm trying to be perfect. So what I would find is that I would type, and I've always hated handwriting, so I would type as much as I possibly could. And right at the end of my bachelor's, right at the end of my master's degrees, laptops started coming out, and I started noticing people in class taking notes on their laptops, and I'm like, yeah, that's the way. That's what I would want to do. So get my train of thought back here. So what I would do is I would always make my plan, always do my pre-writing, but then as I'm writing, if I misspelled a word, I'd backspace, erase all of that, fix it, and then keep going. Or if I needed to change my wording, or a particular word or whatever, I would start changing. I would start revising and editing in the middle of drafting. Then my left brain would start kicking my right brain and say, I could hear myself, Suzanne, you are a writing teacher. You know better than this. You teach people how to do this. And you are not supposed to mess with the revising and the editing before you finish the drafting. So no matter what, whether I thought I was stupid in high school, dumb as dirt, whether I didn't know if I was going to pass in college, then I get to the point where I feel good about my writing, then I'm still kicking myself, right? It's kind of like this mentality that we get in where we tell ourselves we're not going to do something well. So, life-changing episode number 1 was 1988 in the old education building, learning about the writing process. And oh my goodness, this makes so much sense. Figure out where you're going first, then start the car, then start going down the road after you've already figured out where you're going. So these are the steps of the writing process, and even the word process would probably make you think about steps. And for the first many decades of this, of course, my brain is ingrained that there's even a perfect way of doing the writing process. We have to do things in order. There is another visual that I have here. It's the same pre-writing where we do all of these things. We think, we define our purpose. We discuss things. Maybe we talk things over with someone else to kind of bounce ideas. If you're a verbal processor, it's a really good idea to talk things out with someone. You read, you do your research, you do free writing, maybe outlining, and then you start drafting, and you decide what order you want things to go in. You organize things, you rethink, you support your main ideas. You might take a little bit at word choice, but you definitely think about who is your audience and what purpose are you writing from. Then you go into editing, which is the grammar, the punctuation, doing the works cited and bibliography, and then publishing. So it might be in class, it might be online, you might be sending it to get published in a journal or a student magazine, whatever. So there is the same kind of thing with a little bit more of a flow look to it. And then I came back to school. Oh, here we go again. Then I came back to school. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Then I came back to school, knowing that I had for 30 years, every time I was trying to do the writing process, I would get into the revising and get into the writing and I would start revising all of a second. Anyways, I'm going to keep going. So the writing, the revising, and I would start doing these things all at once. When I came back in January of 2015, one of the first things I learned, again, life-altering information. You can tell I was really meant to be an English teacher, right? Life-altering information. The writing process is not a straight line. It is recursive, which means it goes back up on itself, which is what this does. This kind of shows you, let me see if I can make it even smaller. So we have, sometimes I just wish I could get a little bit more paper and a little less header over this. All right. So, yes, it's just not going to cooperate. So we have pre-writing and we might start writing and then, oops, go back. We forgot something. So let's put that on our notes and let's keep going. And then as you're writing, then you start revising and you go, oh, wait a minute, what about this? And I should do that. And then, so this kind of shows that everything, it isn't a straight line. We go back on ourselves many times. And here's another picture of that, probably one that I like a little bit better. And it is just showing you that everything touches everything else. We have pre-writing here, which is, I will strongly say that you need to start with the pre-writing. I know in my own writing, for my own graduate work, if I don't do the pre-writing, I start procrastinating and I start having a really hard time getting started. Once I start, I flow, I'm running, I'm good, but it's getting started that is so excruciating for me. And so what I realized as the writing teacher, as the glorious writing teacher that I am, what I realized is I wasn't doing my pre-writing. I had in my head what I wanted to say, and I just wanted to sit down and start banging it out. Not a great idea, even for English professionals. So I always, always, always will say that you should start with your pre-writing. Make sure you have a good idea of where you're going. I always print out, because I'm kind of old school, I have to print out my my assignment sheet to make sure that I am really following the assignment. And so start with the pre-writing that's kind of in this 12 o'clock position. Then we start drafting. But when you start drafting, you might go into revision. You might go into editing. You might go back to pre-writing. So basically, I don't know about publication. I'd have to see where maybe you're published, maybe if you were collaborating with someone and you had started the drafting process, you would publish to your co-writers to see what they thought about the direction of where you're going. So maybe that's one possibility there. And then as you revise, you might go up and rethink how you're doing something. Then you start drafting again. You do the revision, the editing, the publication. Even the publication, sometimes writers will write something and then publish it. And then a year later, they need to write the same message, but to a different audience. So they might need to pull it out of the drawer, start from scratch, figure out how they need to adjust their information so that the next audience can understand it. Maybe they need to change, maybe you've got somebody who's written for a group of professionals in the industry, and then now that same message needs to go to a group of senior citizens that need the information. And so you wouldn't use the same language. You would want to figure out, how am I going to present the same message to this other group of people that don't know all the jargon and don't know all the language. So sometimes we pull things out even after publishing and start the process over with something, we might just revise what we have. So that is the writing process. And I kind of want to share this next picture with you too, because, and some people say this looks like a woman's brain. Everything is connected to everything else, right? There's very little compartmentalization. Everything touches everything else. So the writing process, there are some significant steps. We definitely need some writing time. We definitely need some revision time. You never want to give something to me or another professor or a boss that you haven't revised. How many times have you sent an email and you realize, and I don't know why I do this, but I send an email and then I go back and read it immediately because I really liked it and I just want to read it again, and I find a mistake. If I had just simply reread it first, I would have stopped myself from missing that. So, really, the writing process is like a big plate of spaghetti. Everything touches everything else. You definitely, hopefully will start with the pre-writing to make sure that you have a good plan. And in fact, many of the things that I ask you to do in the semester is a setup to help me see that you have a good plan before you actually sit down and start writing your papers. So that is the writing process. And it's something you may have to remind yourself to go through, and that's okay. You're learning. But I promise you that if you go through the steps of the writing process, no matter what order you take them in, I promise you that you will feel better about how you write. You won't get into the middle of it's like being lost, right? And you're driving, you don't quite know where you are. I get this sick feeling in the pit of my stomach if I don't know where I am or if I feel like I missed my turn. That's the same feeling I have when I'm writing something and I'm not quite sure where I'm going next, or I'm not quite sure how to start my paper. So, I absolutely promise you that you will not get that lost feeling in the middle of your writing because you'll have a plan. I absolutely promise you that your writing will be better. It will be more organized. You probably will even write faster. Sometimes I hear students say, I don't want to pre-write, it takes too much time. Actually, it probably takes a couple of minutes, and you might save yourself hours of struggle. And I also promise you that because you are more organized in your approach to this writing, that your reader will understand more of what you're saying because you are more organized in how you're presenting it. So the first Easter egg for this week is, what type of food did I compare the writing process to? And here you have it on your screen here. An Easter egg is something that I'm going to put in a couple of different items each week, maybe 3 items each week. And I want you to go to your Google folders. I want you to start a document that says Easter eggs and write week 1 and then write the answer to that question. What is the food comparison that I have made to the writing